Good morning. The French have exploded a second nuclear bomb in the South Pacific. It was 5 times more powerful than the first one last month. That blast provoked international condemnation and riots in Tahiti. Nelson Ortas, deputy leader of Tahiti's Independence Party, fears there could be more violence on the streets of the capital, Papeete.
10:53 and 10:89 a.m.
Talk. Breakfast with Bates. Talk Radio.
Well, another showbiz couple have announced they're to split. Emma Thompson and Kenneth Branagh are separating after 6 years of marriage, and their decision comes hot on the heels of the split between Will Carling and his wife, Julia. In fact, you could, I suppose, say that Julia Carling has changed her will. Meanwhile, the controversy surrounding Mr. Carling's relationship with the Princess of Wales continues. In a survey this week, 82% of people now believe that Diana's marriage is irretrievably damaged. 62% favour a divorce. There is one unexpected, and I must say unlikely ray of hope this morning. The Sun reports that Andrew and Fergie are in love again. But for how long? Our telephone number is 0345 1053 89. 0345 1053 89. An old friend and a fine journalist and author is Una Mary Parker. She's a social and royal commentator. Her latest book is False Promises. It's published next week in paperback. And Una Mary knows the royals perhaps better than the royals know themselves. What's the Queen thinking this morning?
I think the Queen is thinking, oh my God, this is going to be another Annus Horribilis. Diana is in a very difficult position. I mean, no matter who she talks to, who she looks at, there's going to be supposition and gossip.
Oh, come on. This is much worse than that, isn't it?
It's become worse than that because Will Carling has become besotted with her and she can't get rid of him.
Yes, but she's putting out messages constantly, physical and emotional messages, and she's doing it to married men.
And to single men, and to photographers, and to almost everybody she meets.
And journalists from the Daily Mail.
This lady is a born flirt.
Now, is she a flirt or is she promiscuous?
She's a flirt. Oh, she certainly isn't promiscuous. I have heard on very good authority that she doesn't even actually enjoy sex that much. It's the idea of having people admire her and adore her that turns her on so.
Sorry to interrupt you, but if it's the idea of flirting with people that matters to her, is it also, with these married men, a way of getting her own back on her own failure?
Subconsciously, yes. I mean, if she's not going to be happily married, there's probably a deep-rooted feeling as to why should anybody else be happily married.
How about the Queen, though? You say it's another disastrous year for her and that she must be very depressed. Surely she's got the power to control this woman.
No, nobody has the power to control the media who report on these sort of things, and nobody has the power to control men like Will Carling who actually make complete fools of themselves.
Why do they do it?
They become enchanted by her. She is quite hypnotic. She has that Marilyn Monroe quality, that little helpless, blue-eyed, something that makes every man feel protective and loving towards her.
But Una, I've met her, and she's just a very attractive woman on legs, and in the end, you know darn well that behind her is a whole system and at least a couple of royal detectives, so she flirts with you, and I have to say, she didn't flirt with me, and I can understand that.
Oh, dear.
I was a bit disappointed, I must admit. But no vibes came out. You know perfectly well what you're getting yourself into.
Some men do and some men don't. Will Carling obviously didn't. I mean, Larry Lineker said, no way, that woman's trouble, and wouldn't even meet her for luncheon. So if somebody's got, alarm bells ringing, then they stay clear. But so many men, I mean, even Douglas Hurd, elderly statesman, is enchanted, besotted by her.
This extraordinary story about Auburn War being seduced beyond his age.
Yes. Yes, she, I believe, to men, can be irresistible. And this is not entirely her fault.
Any more look at the way she dresses, come on.
Of course, but then, it's part of her job to look really good.
All right, how about Prince Charles? He must be miserable.
Well, he was miserable anyway. I think he was born miserable.
But can he do anything about this, or does he want to, or does he just walk away and talk to his flowers?
Exactly. He turns his back on trouble. He just doesn't want to know. He buries himself in the Highlands, hopefully with Camilla Parker Bowles, although he's absolutely furious that she was spotted going up there. He doesn't want to know. He would like just to sort of have Diana vanish, wave a magic wand and see her disappear forever. But that isn't going to happen. She's very, very popular with the general public still. She's got to be careful. She won't be popular much longer if she goes on with these tacky...
Well, here's an extraordinary thing, and do call us on 0345 1053 1089. It's not, it's 0345 1053 89. 0345 1053 89. I don't understand why Princess Diana is so public and so popular. But she is. You're absolutely right. Both her image and herself, enormously popular throughout the UK. And I'd like to find out exactly why she is so popular. But a quick question for you before we go to the phones. And that is the whole business of showbiz couples, and you would agree, I think, that royalty now is showbiz.
Yeah.
Isn't it easier, to be honest, if they just get on with whatever they want to get on with physically, that messy business, and don't even bother to get married?
I think the royals have to get married because they're legitimising the children. I think that's all part of the sovereign's duty
But
to...
it doesn't work, does it? They all split up.
Yes, I mean, this is life in the royal. This is, it's very tough. And as somebody coming from outside, even from a noble family like Diana's and marrying into the royal family, have a great problem because they're a law unto themselves. From the nightmare of party games after dinner to women guests being told to stay in their bedrooms until 12 noon when they go to Balmoral or Sandringham.
You're joking.
No, that's an absolute rule. You're given all the Sunday papers, all the daily papers, whatever papers come out, breakfast on a tray, and you are not allowed to leave your room until noon.
What happens? You get thrashed within an inch of your life if you come out.
Well, one lady in waiting I know does slip out round the back and go for a walk in the grounds. The Queen likes the place entirely to herself.
A final thought. I was in New York last week at a do which the Duchess of York was attending at Lincoln Center. She was surrounded by some of the most attractive young men I've ever seen in their early 20s, and she looked like she was having a hell of a good time. This story about Andrew and Fergie being in love again in the Sun this morning, did you go with it?
Absolutely no way at all. No way at all. They'll never get back together, much to the relief of everybody in Buckingham Palace, I have to say.
We'll come back in just a moment. Look, is it time to tear up the marriage vows and start again? The debate after the break basically says there are two kinds of people in the world, the showbiz people, including royals, and the rest of us. So perhaps we should combine ourselves and acknowledge that marriage as a Victorian idea, and ideal indeed, is well and truly over. Let's all live together, and that way the tabloids won't care. It's 10 minutes past 7. Let's go to the lines and have a word with... Simon is not there, I think. We'll take a break and come back in just a sec.
I went to see my grandson last week. He was playing with his toy. I couldn't make head and tail of it. When I was your age, I said, we had to make do with Nintendo Game Boy. Of course, he'd never heard of it. Super Mario, I told him. I can still remember one Christmas time, dragging my dad round every toy shop in town. Dad reckoned I'd be better off with a train set, but I knew he'd end up playing with that. And on the way home, we went to McDonald's. He got me a Big Mac extra value meal, and blow me if it wasn't less than £3. These days, he'd be lucky to get change from 10 ECUs.
McDonald's extra value meals. Good food and a good old-fashioned price.
Oh, my boss makes Scrooge look like Rockefeller. Last year's Christmas bonus was a bottle of wine, between 35. He says if anyone has suggestions on how to save the company money, they'll be well rewarded. So I suggested we send all our international packages by DHL and take advantage of their frequent user discounts. You see, even if we send as few as 5 packages a month by DHL, we'd still qualify. I worked out exactly how much we'd save. I've never seen him smile so much since his last trip to the bank. Anyway, thanks to DHL, he's taken me out to lunch.
Small or large fries with your burger, madam?
Oh, well, can't have everything. Mind you, a fork would be nice.
DHL, we keep your promises.
Breakfast with Bates, Talk Radio.
It's 11.5 past 7. A very good morning to you. Now, Simon is on the line from New Haven in East Sussex. Hi, Simon.
Hello, Simon.
Good morning.
How are you?
You're on talk, and I'm delighted you are. It took me a little bit of time and trouble to actually get my fingers to work in the right direction.
Not to worry, not to worry.
What's your point?
My point is that I think Will Carling is the innocent party here. I think Princess Di loves this sort of scandal. I mean, it gets her in the newspapers.
Absolutely.
It gets people talking about her.
But it's so tacky, isn't it?
It is. I think it's pathetic. I think the whole behaviour since the Charles and Di have split up has been atrocious. I mean, who is she to actually leave public life in the first place? We're paying her a fortune. She should do some work to earn this.
It's more than that, isn't it? And I'll go to Una in just a second, but it's also the whole business of the way she sets herself up as a sort of virgin queen, doing things for charity.
Yeah.
I find that really offensive, and also we pay for it. Don't go away, Simon. What do you reckon, Una?
Well, first of all, we don't keep her at all. Prince Charles keeps her in comfort, and she did, in fact, inherit several million when she was 21. So she's not costing the taxpayer a penny.
Isn't she?
No, not at all.
The trips don't cost anything? We pay for the trips, don't we?
No, it's all paid out of the Duchy of Cornwall.
Well, in that case, she should do whatever she wants, Simon.
Well, it's fair enough, but she's got, remember, even if she wasn't a royal figure, she's still got two young children, very impressionable children, who, I mean, if I was at that age and I saw my mother doing that sort of thing, I don't know what I'd think.
Actually, that's a good point, Una.
It is a good point. On the other hand, this is a woman of 35 in the prime of life. I mean, is she supposed to be celibate for the rest of time?
But you said she didn't like sex.
No, but she likes the sort of the fun of being
flirting.
attractive. And
she likes
flirting.
breaking up marriages. Is that what you're saying?
No. She just likes being admired and having fun and dining. Things that all normal women of that age
But you
do.
brought up a good point, Simon. I wonder how the boy who's now at Eton feels this morning and has done over the last few days with his friends presumably showing him the front page of the papers.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a disgrace just from the children's point of view, let alone the fact that she's quite embarrassing this country and all that the royal family have stood for quite a long time. I think her behaviour is disgraceful.
Simon, thank you very much indeed for calling. New Haven in East Sussex is where he called from. It's 14 minutes past 7. 0345 1053 89. 0345 1053 89 is our telephone number. Now, front pages, of course, tell stories of showbiz marriage disasters. The nation's divorce statistics don't tell a much happier tale. There are nearly 750,000 divorces every year, each one of them breaking the solemn vow, till death us do part. Una Mary Parker, of course, is still with us. Jo Ellen Grizib, and I hope I've got that right.
You do indeed.
A psychotherapist. Look, as a psychotherapist, what do you think of the idea of a renewable marriage contract? That gives us a little bit of a let-out, doesn't it?
Well, it sounds good in theory. I actually don't agree with it at all.
Not?
First off, the idea of committing to something with the idea that you would then leave it after a certain period of time means that there's no commitment, really.
But isn't marriage a Victorian institution based on the fact that we all died younger? Now, 50 or 60 years is a fairly normal sort of duration for a marriage, and that's asking a hell of a lot of any couple.
Absolutely. I mean, because I do work with couples, and I usually get them by the time it's too late, rather than at the beginning. To me, I mean, my radical solution would be that people go into counseling before they get married to understand what vows are all about.
I thought that's what the Catholic priest did. He counseled you.
Not everybody goes to a Catholic priest, and actually there's an understanding about marriage within the idea of Catholicism rather than the idea of building a relationship in a culture that is changing all the time. We do change. I'm not the same person I was when I was 19 when I got married. However, am I going to develop with my husband or am I going to develop separately from him is something that we don't often take into account when we get married.
You see, the real problem, and Una touched on it and Simon did earlier on, is the children in this. And it's the old story that really the couple can suffer as much as they like because that's their problem. But it's the kids who always come off worse. And think of Princess Diana.
Right. Well, in this situation, I mean, the Princess of Wales had children because maybe she wanted them, but it was also an obligation. It was part of the marriage contract. Not everyone necessarily goes into marriage with the idea of having children.
Okay, let's go to the lines. Gail in London. Hello, Gail.
Hello. My goodness me, how often have I to ring up and support this princess? Some people would like her to go onto a hot beach in a Victorian bathing outfit.
Yes, please.
I mean, quite frankly, what 10 times worse people do than this.
But not 10 times as public people do this.
Well, you know, I think the publicity is coming from the Carlings. I'm awfully sorry. I really
Well, a
think
marriage
that,
is broken up, hasn't it?
Listen, well, it is broken up. It's a power thing to do with the Carlings. Who's boss, you know?
What, Julia or Will?
Exactly. Who's boss?
Una.
That's the whole thing that's going on.
Don't go,
Who's
Gail, for a
boss?
second. Una, would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. I think
Exactly.
to think if Mrs. Carling had just kept a dignified silence at the beginning and maybe continued to keep a dignified silence and they had put out one joint press release instead of Will putting out one saying one thing and Julia putting out another saying
Yeah, but
another
they split
thing.
up. Of course you're going to put out separate press releases because they're about to go into the divorce court.
But
the way it
how
looks.
strong a marriage was this in the first place that it can be broken up after 14 months? And let's face it, it hasn't ruined her television career.
Oh, you're a cynical
Listen,
old soul.
Julia is rather, what's the word? She's rather probably fed up with being a footballer's wife because they're never there. Golfers, footballers, they're never there. So, you know, maybe out and a good television career is all that's necessary.
Does that make it any better for Princess Diana to flirt so publicly and so obviously with people?
Well, maybe, I don't know. I think she probably has done no more than she would flirt with anybody else, quite frankly. This same thing happened to me. I went through a divorce. Somebody's wife was looking for a divorce.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, well, who'd believe her anyway? You know, this has happened. I recognize it.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for the call, Gail. Whole variety of opinions. 18 minutes past 7. Our telephone number this morning is 0345 1053 89, but it is our telephone number constantly. Let us go back now. With a little bit of luck, we'll talk to Madge in Nuneaton. Hi, Madge. Madge, speak to me.
I'm just wondering, I'm neither for or against Princess Diana, but I would just like to know, you stated, about flirt. If Will was flirting with a woman and the boot was on the other foot, I mean, Diana's not leading him by the hand, is she?
Well,
He's a married man.
I think she was. No, that's a good point. Oh, no. It is a good point that maybe Princess Diana was flirting, but he knew what he was getting himself into. Or has he been bruised a lot at rugby?
Probably, but I feel Princess Diana is being knocked from pillar to post here. I'm not taking her side, really. I'm just saying that any man, especially a married man, who is led by Diana or any other woman, they're to be blamed. Not Diana or any woman, whoever it is.
All right, well, thank you very much indeed for the call. I'll go to Joan in London. Hello.
Yes, hello. I just want to sort of comment on this whole thing. I mean, I don't see why Diana is being knocked about all the time. Nobody, you mean Will Carling don't have a mind of his own? Or men are so weak that they can't, she has to flutter an eyelid and they just come running?
I'm only jealous because she didn't flutter her eyelids at me.
I think so. And also, too, nobody jumps on Charles, who publicly came out and said that he didn't love his wife. How is she expected to cope with such a thing? And nobody in Britain comes out, for her or against Charles when he made such a statement.
Okay.
I think she was pulled into this whole thing, and she was bamboozled and hoodwinked.
Bamboozled? Hoodwinked? Will Carling turned up, flexed his muscles, and she just collapsed in a faint. Una, do you agree with that?
No, not entirely. On the other hand, when she said, we can't meet anymore, once it became public, you see, she didn't do this publicly. Nobody knew about it until the media tackled it. Once it became public, she didn't want to know anymore, because she knew it was bad for the children, bad for the monarchy, bad for everything.
Hang on, she went back and she had a tearful Oh, no, she didn't.
She didn't.
Of course, she didn't have a tearful
He turned up at Kensington Palace at 9 o'clock one night with rugger shirts for the boys, and she went out and was not there when she heard he was coming.
What about this reunion that was reported in the newspapers 7 days ago?
She goes 8 o'clock every single morning to this health club. And
how come she was in tears when she came out?
She wasn't. She was red with anger. She was furious. He turned up hoping to bump into her. And apparently, somebody I know was there. She sort of said, what the hell is he doing here? Look how this is going to look.
That's an insight, isn't it? Hello, Joan in London. Hi. Joan? Speak to me, Joan. Hello, Joan. Are you there? You're not. Okay. It's 21 minutes past 7. We're talking basically about, I suppose, the royal marriage and the Carlings' marriage, but also the whole business of marriage vows versus marriage contract. It does seem to me that if we need counselling, and we have an expert with us in the shape of a psychotherapist who knows what she's talking about, who is Jo Ellen Grissett, it seems to me that if we don't need a marriage contract, we need an improvement in the marriage vows, at least.
Yes, I mean, one thing that's very obvious from listening to what's happened so far this morning is what a public service this is all doing, because we can take our mind off our own problems and project them purely and squarely on someone else.
Biggest soap opera in the world.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And it does, because that's part of what we do as sort of the normal, regular folks, is that we will project our expectations and our desires onto the people who are in the news.
So at the end of the day, do we really need the royals and showbiz marriages like Emma Thompson's and Kenneth Branagh's to collapse just to keep ourselves interested in life?
Well, I wish it wouldn't happen. I mean, we all wish it wouldn't happen, because that's part of our need, is to have people in the public eye fulfill our expectations, which is that marriage is happily ever after, and it's just glamour and wonderful and romantic, and none of the hard work that involves getting married in the first place.
Final question for you, Jo Ellen, before we take more calls. The question is, are they different to us?
Oh, yeah, of course they're different from us. Without question, they are under public scrutiny all the time.
7:22. We'll talk with the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party at about 5 minutes past 8, John Prescott. We'll discuss his relationship with Tony Blair and whether socialism as an issue is dead. But now, here's the travel and weather with Sandy Wall. It's a celeb book, but it's also got some lovely ideas in it. John, who's on a mobile from somewhere. John, hi.
Hello.
You're on the line to Gloria Hunniford.
Oh, lovely. Gloria, I was flicking through the channels about 5 or 6 weeks ago. It could have been longer. And I see you doing an interview with Calamity Jane, Doris Day.
Yes.
Tell me something. Was it right what I heard her say that she very rarely ever gives interviews?
Yes.
She hasn't actually, with the exception of one interview which she did when she got an award, I believe it was 87. She hadn't done any interviews since 1968.
Really?
When her husband died, she really just gave up virtually everything. Having said that, she's not living a miserable life in Carmel, in California. She's very, very happy with an enormous number of dogs. She wouldn't even tell me how many dogs she's got, because I think off the record maybe she contravenes some law there that says you can only have X number of dogs, in a private house. But she is absolutely hooked on animals. But she did the interview because of what she termed the lost record. A record had been made in 1968, the year that her husband Marty died. And simply everybody forgot about it because Doris was so upset about various things. Not only had Marty died, but he'd also lost most of her millions of money.
How?
So, well, just bad management, and
Right.
he'd invested in, being an accountant, had invested mega millions. So it was a very traumatic situation all round. But her son Terry, whom she totally depends on for everything really, emotionally and financially and physically, etc.
It's interesting because I tried to get an interview with her for years and never got there. You did. Is she the kind of person, you always have this image of a recluse, is she the kind of person who shakes your hand and looks you straight in the face?
She was very approachable, and of course, you're talking to the person here who wanted to be Doris Day as she was growing up, because we had a lot of cinemas in our town in Northern Ireland. We went to the movies a lot, and I used to practice all those songs like crazy. But she, I found it, I suppose because I was meeting a true heroine, if you like, I found her quite down to earth, very straightforward, and with the exception of a few pounds in the middle that we're all suffering from, she looked almost the same. That same smile, sorry?
Was she as good looking as what she always has been?
She looked gorgeous, I have to say. It's still the same hairstyle, still that same giggle, you know?
Why is it she's never been in any other films? Because I could see her, these films that they're bringing out now.
Well, she...
why is she not appearing in any films anymore? Because she is such a stunner.
She's asked her that question.
I'm only 32, and I think she... I know film
Easy, John.
Jane is my...
Are you a married man, John?
I am. I'm 32, and Calamity Jane is my almost favourite film. There's nothing else that can beat that, and my kids love her.
Thank you very much.
I tell you, that's also her favourite film. Her grandchildren adore her as Calamity Jane. When her grandson comes in, he just can't equate grandma sitting here, if you like, and this Calamity Jane.
Okay, let's grovel a little bit to you. One of your great abilities is to be social and get on with people, and you manage to mix terribly well in interviews politicians, stars, and ordinary people. What's the trick?
If anything, I think a fundamental enjoyment of people. We were talking about my mum earlier on, and again, I think it's interesting how kids just absorb certain traits or certain values in people. And she was the original person who, and of course it was at a time when you could leave your front door open, but, literally that front door was never closed. The teapot was always, on the bubble, because she stewed the tea to make sure it was nice and strong, and no matter who came over the door, she offered this amazing hospitality. And she had a genuine interest in people. And I think in a way as children, we grew up with that same attitude. So, and this sounds very trite to say, and, it's probably sick-making, but I genuinely like people of all sorts. And yes, I may totally admire, as we were talking about Doris Day, people whom I've, looked at the screen and grown up admiring. But at the other end of the scale, I really do like people, whoever they happen to be, and that is sick-making, I know. But
it's
anyway,
not sick-making at all. But times have changed. You've had your own share of press attention. You've had your own unhappinesses within your life. You've had a failed marriage, all that. Do you ever lose your optimism?
No, I've actually tried to, over the years, turn every negative situation into... And again, I don't know whether that's just my nature, but no matter what happens, I do try to turn around and say, well, now, is there anything good I can take out of this? I'm a great believer also that you have to get on with your life. And to date, and I'm touching wood, I feel I've been very fortunate in life. So, and yes, of course, I've had my fair share of disappointments and unhappy situations. But I do think you have to get on with it. I don't think you can spend any time looking back and living with regrets. And there are so many interesting things in life that I do want to get on with. And I am...
Such as?
Well, I don't know, but I'm doing a lot of it at the minute. Travel, I always wanted to be Alan Wicker.
Everybody.
because when we were kids, you know, my dad used to say, doesn't that guy have the best job in the world?
Yeah.
So although I never did any of this per se, I did always want Alan Wicker's job. So he used to always say, why don't you move over? Well, to a degree, I'm getting a lot of that now with travel. So I've always wanted to do that. I would like to do serious documentaries. I know you've had your fair share doing serious stuff, but I cut my teeth on news and current affairs in Northern Ireland.
People forget that every night after night, doing pity interviews.
And I loved that.
God, you were hard in those days.
Do you know one of the hardest interviews I ever had the chance of doing while I was here was Salman Rushdie, who did his first live interview.
Yes, but he's a flirt. He'd love you. Wouldn't he?
Oh, there was no flirting that night.
Wasn't there?
Yeah. In that case, because of the news and current affairs background, I read solidly for a day and a half. Because what I knew about Salman Rushdie, you know, I really could have put in your thumbnail. I mean, just really what I'd read in the press. But there was a counter-argument at that stage, and again, because of background, I like being the devil's advocate on occasions. But then, because my bag was entertainment on Radio 2, I never really got the opportunity to do that too much. So that's another thing I'd like, and I do like it when I get a chance to do serious stuff.
Let me turn it around just for a second and ask you, when does the television series come out? This is a 10-parter you're doing, is it?
Well, it's going to take 1.5 to 2 years to shoot, because 40-minute documentaries, as you know, by the time you do each one in 3 different locations or whatever, takes quite a long time.
These are profiles of famous people.
They're profiles of famous people being made independently, to be sold independently around the world. It may be the most wonderful success. On the other hand, it may not. But it's a good opportunity.
It's wonderful.
It is, and I'm enjoying it very much.
So it's made independently, and therefore we don't know whether it's going to be BBC or ITV.
No. I mean, these will be sold on the open market, as a lot of television programmes are these days. I mean, let's be honest, that's the way everything's going. Independent.
Will you go back to daytime television, do you think?
Well, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed doing Pebble Mill last year, but then this year I can't guarantee to be here twice a week.
It's a hell of a grind, though, isn't it, David?
Yeah, I enjoy it, though. I mean, like you, I like the live situation, and I enjoyed that very much. But I'm still keeping up my links with Radio 2. I'm doing specials for them, a new talent series coming up.
They're desperate for you.
Bones.
Now, look here, where's the novel? That's the only thing you haven't done.
Well, I thought I'd write about the nights you and I had in Birmingham, Saturday nights, when I first came over as a very green little girl from Northern Ireland.
You were so kind, and thank you. Oh, the flowers have gone, I noticed. Jemima's taken the flowers. Look, the book is wonderful. The book is just great fun, and it's a pleasure, and it gives you a cuddly feeling, which I suspect is what Hunneford does, though I've never seen the prickly side, but there is one, I'm sure. Gloria Hunneford's family cookbook, traditional Irish recipes, but there's also a bit more than that, and there's a lush photograph of you in a hat that the Queen Mother would give her.
Oh, I do like hats.
Where'd the hat come from?
Philip Somerville, if you really want to know.
Did you borrow it or pay for it?
Well, I paid for that one, but occasionally he might let me borrow. That one for the wedding was paid for.
I look forward to the television series. The book is a joy. It's Gloria Hunneford's family cookbook. It's by Sunrise?
Sunburst.
Sunburst. Oh,
and listen, good luck with your programme. I was listening on the way in this morning. A lot of good pithy stuff there, and I wish you all the best.
God bless you, Squire. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for the flowers. And thanks for the book. Gloria Hunneford, who is on her way now, presumably to open or close something, or...
Funny enough, I'm going home today, Simon. At a novelty.
Well, thank you for coming in. A joy.
Thank you.
It's a day for the Mac and the Brolly today. Sunny spells and showers. The worst of the rain in the north and the west, where it'll be quite prolonged at times. Temperatures today up to 13 Celsius in parts of Scotland, 17 in southern and eastern England. AA Road Watch tell us that in Avon, the A37 Wells Road in Bristol, a lorry's broken down just prior to the junction with West Town Lane. That's the B3119. There's only one lane available for outbound traffic. Cheshire, the M6 between junctions 20 and 21A. That's Lim to Croft through that new contraflow. Northbound traffic crawling back to junction 19 for Tabley. In Devon, the B3199 Torquay Road in Paynton, a lorry fire is causing problems at the junction with Cecil Road, where the road has been closed. In Greater Manchester, the A663 Milno Road Shore, a broken down lorry causing heavy congestions in both directions at the Jubilee Bends. On the M25 in Hertfordshire, between junctions 22 and 19, that's St Albans to Watford, very slow anti-clockwise traffic down to just 5 miles an hour in places. And in Shropshire, the A529 at Market Drayton, delays following an accident, but all should be clear shortly.
Regular updates throughout the day on Talk Radio.
Dory, is that long hair? Or is that long hair? Yeah.
My boss was in the army. Runs his own company now. Thing is, he runs it like a platoon. Makes us salute him every morning. We even have kit inspections. Pencils must be sharp. Desktops must be tip-top. I'm in charge of Operation Big Parcel. I've got to dispatch over 100 parcels and packages to over 60 countries every month. A detailed Stormy Norman would find tough.
You may go and have a
That's why I use DHL.
Thank you.
They're the UK's biggest international express carrier, and they haven't let me down yet. Says he'd make me clean the loos with a Tipex brush if they did.
Engine.
Sir. Nice work, Evans. Stand at ease. I wonder if I'll get a medal.
DHL, we keep your promises.
Help! I can't hang on much longer! Look, he's going over the edge! No, it's my life insurance premiums! They're killing me!
Throw him a rope!
Wait! On second thoughts, you'd better ring the Royal!
Could you be paying too much for your life insurance? Royal Insurance could save you money with our range of very competitive premiums. Ring the Royal now, free on 0800 920 820 to arrange for a personal illustration. You could also win £1,000 in our free prize draw just by calling to arrange for your illustration. So ring the Royal today on 0800 920 820. Royal Insurance Life and Pensions is regulated by the Personal Investment Authority.
Backache, rheumatic and muscular aches, pains and strains. The power and strength of one of today's leading painkillers harnessed in a gel. Ibuleve gel. Ibuleve brings you the same pain-killing power in a rapidly absorbed, penetrating gel. Ibuleve. Believe in the pain-killing power and strength of Ibuleve. Pain relief without pills.
Ibuleve contains ibuprofen. Ask your pharmacist and always read the label.
With the help of those nice people from Kleenex Tissues, here's the first one. It is Talk Radio UK, and it is Our Tune. What I've done for this one is to delve into the Our Tune files of the past. As of tomorrow, they will be Our Tune sent in to Talk Radio UK at our usual address. And if you don't know that address yet, then I'll tell you what it is a little later on. But this is from the file of about 6 months ago. And it's from Kathy, whose name I have changed, and life seemed pretty good to her. She'd been married for 5 years, had 2 kids she loved, and a husband she thought the world of. She'd met Alistair at university in 1988, and though a lot of her friends had thought he was a bit of a wimp, they married within 6 months, and after they'd both graduated, settled down to a pretty good life. Alistair had a first-rate job as a college lecturer and seemed set for promotion, and life might have gone on like that without any hiccups if Kathy hadn't become suspicious that he was having a bit on the side. Now, you've got to understand in this relationship, he was still making love to her. It was just the odd things that she began to notice, coupled, of course, with a bit of paranoia. At first, it was coming home late at night. Then lame excuses for coming home a little too late, a little too often. And then occasionally he'd say he had to stay over with friends, and even though he'd give her their telephone number, she didn't want to humiliate herself by calling late at night and maybe talking to a stranger. She didn't want to look like the nagging and insecure wife, but she was absolutely certain that something was going on. It wasn't anything specific. It was just a feeling in her mind. So quietly, she checked out the friend he said he was staying with, expecting that she'd find out that he hadn't been staying there. Well, it turned out the guy was another college lecturer, and so for a while she was reassured. And then she found the letter. It was one Wednesday when Kathy was turning out Alistair's suit for the cleaners, and as she went through the pockets, she found the envelope and opened it. And it was a love letter. She was absolutely certain that Alistair was having an affair, but still, she didn't want to make a fool of herself because there was no signature on the letter, so she kept quiet about it all. A week later, Alistair said that he'd be staying with his college friend, and she knew that this was the one chance to find out exactly who was involved in the relationship. So, she made up her mind to follow him. Maybe he wouldn't spend the night there. Maybe he'd just go in the house, come out a little later on, and move on to whoever this person was. Or maybe he was even taking a woman back to the flat. She took the kids to her mother's for the evening and then drove to the street where Alistair's friend lived, and she watched. She saw Alistair and his mate arrive at about 9, and then she waited, and she waited. She sat all night and somehow stayed awake all night too, watching the door through the window of the car as the windscreen steamed up, and no one went in or came out until the two men left at 7:30 in the morning. And by this time, of course, she was exhausted and confused. She couldn't work it out. There was a love letter, definitely a love letter, in his jacket, and yet he'd been staying with his friend. And so she went round to her mother's and burst into tears and owned up about her suspicions. And her mother told her, look, there's only one thing you can do, and that is confront Alistair. Ask him if it's true that he's having an affair, which is what Kathy did that night. At first, he denied having an affair, but when Kathy persisted and then produced the letter, he suddenly sank his head in his hands and he began to cry. And that's when Kathy found out the truth about the man she'd married 7 years before. That was when Alistair explained that he was bisexual, that before he'd met her, he'd had affairs with both men and women, and that one of the reasons for marrying her had been to prove to himself that he wasn't gay. That was a hell of a shock, as you can imagine. But she listened on, and he explained that even though they'd had a good sexual relationship, and even though at first he thought he wouldn't have to submit at any stage to the temptations that he'd been prone to before, after a few years and one night with a few drinks, he'd ended up in bed with the lecturer from college, with the lecturer whose telephone number Kathy had had, and who she thought was just a good friend, but now proved to be so much more than that. He also said that it was just a physical thing, a thing which didn't help Kathy at all. And they sat and looked at each other. Alistair begged Kathy to forgive him, and she asked him one question, and the question was the toughest one she'd ever asked. And the question required one simple answer. And he looked at her and said, I cannot give you the answer you want. And that was when she knew she had a problem that was almost insoluble. And that was when they decided to spend 2 weeks apart from each other, thinking about their relationship and thinking about exactly what they were going to do with their life in the future. And she decided at that point that she would have to ask the question one more time, and that she would then make up her mind until the two men left at 7:30 in the morning. And by this time, of course, she was exhausted and confused. She couldn't work it out. There was a love letter, definitely a love letter, in his jacket, and yet he'd been staying with his friend. And so she went round to her mother's and burst into tears and owned up about her suspicions. And her mother told her, look, there's only one thing you can do, and that is confront Alistair. Ask him if it's true that he's having an affair, which is what Kathy did that night. At first, he denied having an affair, but when Kathy persisted and then produced the letter, he suddenly sank his head in his hands and he began to cry. And that's when Kathy found out the truth about the man she'd married 7 years before. That was when Alistair explained that he was having affairs with men. He said that he simply didn't know if he could do it. So, for a fortnight, they split up, and the situation hasn't changed much. Right now, Kathy has seen the weak side of her husband, and she believes that at some stage in the future, if he's tempted, he'll end up in bed with a man, even though this particular affair is over. The trouble is, and I rang her last week, she loves Alistair very deeply, and she doesn't know what to do next. At the moment, they sleep in separate rooms, but they are still together. As for the future, when I was talking to Kathy yesterday, she doesn't know. Only time will tell, and from her point of view, she has to make up her mind. Can she live with a bisexual husband, Or can she exist on her own?
He was always really romantic, my husband. I remember once he took me for a day out in London. I couldn't believe it. It was so busy. Mind you, that was in the days when they still let cars into the West End and people went out to shop. We did the sights. He even had tickets for a show. It was that musical, Grease. Only they wrote songs like that nowadays. We just had time for a quick bite to eat before the last train home. We went to McDonald's. He bought me a McChicken sandwich, extra value meal, and he was delighted when he got change from £3. Oh, maybe he wasn't such a romantic after all.
McDonald's extra value meals. Good food and a good old-fashioned price.
Connect yourself to Mobile Phone Express, the easiest way to get mobile with the Carphone Warehouse. If you call our Mobile Phone Express line any day before 4 p.m, we'll deliver a new mobile phone to your door the next working day. Like the brand new Motorola Duo flip phone, already connected free to Vodafone for just $8.99. Monthly line rental from £15. And with Mobile Phone Express, there's no connection fee, no delivery charge. And if you're not completely satisfied, you can return the phone within 14 days and get your money back. It's as easy as that. Just $8.99 and you can have a Motorola flip phone already connected and ready to use, delivered to your door. Mobile Phone Express from the Carphone Warehouse. Call now on 0800 424 800. That's 0800 424 800.
If you don't connect yourself, ain't nobody gonna get a hold of you.
0800 24 800.
Mates, for a bigger breakfast on Talk Radio.
Just drop, if you can, your our tune to us, will you? It's 76 Oxford Street in London. 76 Oxford Street, London will get to us. It's our tune, Simon Bates, and it's Talk Radio, 76 Oxford Street. A final thought about the controversial portrait of Princess Diana, which is back in the news this morning. Apparently, when the artist first painted it, the picture showed a vibrant, beautiful Diana. However, after the revelations of the last week or so, the portrait is haggard and drawn, whilst the princess herself remains youthful. The picture is to be kept in the attic at Kensington Palace. When reporters told the princess it's just like the picture of Dorian Gray, the insightful and intelligent royal replied, "No, it's definitely me," adding, "Though I do enjoy birds of a feather." I'll see you tomorrow morning. Jonathan King is next.
Across the nation on 1053 and 1089 AM. This is Talk Radio UK.
It's 10 o'clock. I'm Sandy Waugh. Greenpeace says the latest French nuclear test in the South Pacific is an act of cowardice. The explosion was 5 times more powerful than their first last month. That provoked riots in Tahiti and protests around the world. The New Zealand Prime Minister Jim Bolger says France is thumbing its nose at international opinion.